In this documentary, I will compare the Civil War to the Indian Wars fought in the United States of America. It seems like in the generation we live in now, they want to destroy all of our history, for the southern states more special. Once again, they've had an onslaught against the southern states, and they say, the Confederate flag is all about slavery and all that. Well, that's not so. King Cotton was the cause of the Civil War. The northern states wanted to control the cotton, the money, and put heavy tariffs on it. They was looking to the South for all the money that those plantation owners were making. And their intention was, since they wouldn't allow the northern states or the Washington to control the money and the flow of money out of the cotton fields and stuff, that they would do something to try to put a chink on all the plantation owners and all the cotton growers in the South. So what best way to cut out their labor? And that was by using the Declaration of Emancipation that Abraham Lincoln made. It wasn't to free the black folks. That was just a lie that was told to get people's emotions going. His main purpose is to cut out all the labor in the South that were working in the cotton fields. He didn't care about those black folks. And I'm going to tell you something. Large governments today, they don't care about me and you either. But anyway, let's get into a discussion about the Civil War. Well, they fought the war, and many men were slain. And the Confederate flag, it honors those men that gave their lives fighting for what they thought were right. Well, the Yankees, they came down and fighting for what they thought were right. I don't have anything in uphold slavery in any way at all, what form or fashion. But however, those men died honorably, and their bodies were strewn across the hillsides, Yankees as well as Confederate soldiers. And so, it's a dog-eat-dog world today. They'll take the things that are happening and want to do away because they say it's a symbol of a shameful thing. Well, let's talk about, do they have the right to talk about symbols of shameful things? Okay, now let's talk about the great fine doing United States military back in the 1800s and all. They came down and they slaughtered a lot of Southerners, and the Southerners killed a lot of the Northern guys, and it was just a humongous bad war. I mean, from the get-go, it was a bad war. But anyhow, brothers fighting brothers and everything, and now they want to take down the flag. Well, let's just look and see if the Northern soldiers done anything that might discredit some of the things they're trying to say about the South and paint all us folks down here in the southern part of the United States that honor the Confederate flag for the men, not necessarily the reason they fought, but the men that did fight honorably for what they believed in their nation at that time. And now listen, let's talk about, we'll start talking about after the Civil War. What gracious and wonderful things after the Emancipation Proclamation was made and the colored folks were freed, which I agree they should have been freed, but, let's don't go into details about the war being over to free the slaves. It was not. It was to get the slaves out of the cotton fields so that cotton men would fold under the pressure of the United States to tar off cotton and all kinds of things they had planned to do, because they hated, for the southern states were so rich, then those selfish, greedy northern Yankee boys couldn't stand it, especially Abraham Lincoln. Now, Abraham Lincoln was supposed to be such a nice guy. Well, let's read a little bit. Now, this is talking in the summertime, just a little while, not too long before right during the period of time just before the Civil War in that era and all the way through the Civil War. But talking later that summer, Lincoln dispatched General John Pope, who was defeated by Lee at the Second Battle of Bull Run to smash an uprising. What kind of uprising? Among the Dakota Sioux in Minnesota. The results was the largest mass execution in the nation's history. 38 Dakotas were hanged the day after Christmas in 1862. A year later, Kit Carson, who had found glory at the Battle of Val Verde, prosecuted an scorched earth campaign against the Navajos, culminating in 1864 with a long walk which the Navajos endured, a 300-mile forced march from Arizona to a reservation in New Mexico. Well, isn't that sweet? Ain't that just nice? Oh, but yet, we got to take down the Confederate flag. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be disturbed by this at all. You know, they just went in and slaughtered a bunch of Indians and killed a whole slew of them, you know, now right after the Civil War, right there in 1864. Put them on that long march from Arizona to a reservation in New Mexico. Since, they already sold all their land. That same year, Colonel John Shivington, who turned back Confederates in the Southwest at the Battle of Goretta Pass, attacked a peaceful camp. Oh, no, he wouldn't do nothing like that. A fellow that fought to free slaves and all that kind of stuff, you know, had great humanitarian military men that were for trying to free folks and all that. They wouldn't do this. Now listen, he attacked a peaceful camp of Cheyennes and Arapahoes at Sand Creek in Colorado. Shivington's troops slaughtered more than 150 Indians. A mass majority were women, children, and the elderly. Through the streets of Denver, the soldiers paraded their grim trophies from the killing field. Listen to this. Oh, man, they were so proud of what they done. Oh, what a great, wonderful bunch of people those Yankee soldier boys were. Listen, they paraded their grim trophies from the killing field. Scalps and genitalia. Yeah, I said genitalia. In 1864, the famous Sand Creek Massacre, which resulted in 400 peaceful Arapaho and Cheyenne men, women, and children and babies were killed by forces led by Colonel John Shivington, who, with 700 men, force of Colorado Territorial Militia, committed the atrocities against the peaceful villages of Cheyenne and Arapaho Indians. To the Army, soon after the Civil War, fell a task of exterminating, or at least evicting, the savage tribes over all this. Unvalued and unknown Middle West, this was a process not altogether simple. For a considerable time, the Indians themselves were able to offer very effective resistance to the enterprise they were accustomed to living upon in that country. They had their own homes and their own lands, just like they come down in the southern states and began to do those things and all like that. Now, it's just something make you want to spit in a bucket or something. To bring in their own supplies, hence the Army fought them at certain disadvantage. In Smooth, the Army had to learn to become half Indian. Oh, they infiltrating them. That's them spies and all these guys that coming in and jade helm into the state of Texas to be subversive and all that stuff and blend in. They said they had to become half Indian before it could fight Indians on anything like even terms. We seem not too much to have coveted the lands in the first Indian fighting days. We fought rather for trails and then this for the soil of the Indians. Themselves had lived there all their lives and had conquered their environment and were happy in it and made a bitter fight, nor are they to be blamed for doing so. I want you to hear that. Who could blame them? I mean, who could blame the southern men when the Yankees started coming down in the southern states, no matter what reason it was? Who could blame those men? They weren't fighting to keep slaves. They were fighting to keep their homes. They were fighting to keep them Yankees from burning their crops to the ground. They were fighting to keep Yankees from stomping and killing their cows and taking their horses. They were fighting for their homes just like these Indian boys were right here. What a great deal is that bunch of Yankees turned out to be. The years following the Civil War, Custer continued to distinguish himself in the eyes of the military and public with his battles against the Native Americans. As the still young country looked to settle the West, it needed to defeat, they got to defeat some more poor Indians out there, the Lakota and the Cheyenne Indians that still dominated parts of the frontier. On the other side of the attack was Sitting Bull, a revered Lakota chief who had originally wanted peace at Little Bighorn. He wanted peace. Man, we don't want to fight you guys and go through all this slaughter. Well, the southern folks, all they wanted to do is raise their cottons and everything. Now, they should have turned the colored folks loose and paid them a decent salary. Paid them, they were making a lot of money off of them. They should have paid them a salary and let them go and work and make their own ways. But no, this same thing, these guys, they wanted to have peace too. But old Custer, he was determined to fight. The general's biggest mistake came in ordering his men to divide in 3 parts against an onrush of thousands of Lakota, Arapaho, and Cheyenne warriors. Custer and his men were surrounded and killed. You hear that? How stupid. Some punishment for doing what they was doing wrong all the time. This war did not spring up on our land. This war was brought to us by the children of the Great Father who came to take our land without a price, and who in our land do a great many evil things. This war has come from robbery, from stealing our land. And that was a quote by Spotted Tail, a Lakota Indian. I'm going to tell you something. I don't blame them for fighting left and right and up and down. Now, listen to this. This defeat was a stinging embarrassment to the U.S. government, which redoubled its efforts and quickly and cruelly defeated the Lakota. Have no more land. I am driven away. This is a quote from one of the Indian ladies, and she said this: we have no more land. I am driven away from my home, driven up the red waters. You know what that means, waters flowing with blood. Let us all go. Let us all go die together. An anonymous Creek Indian woman. Human shields. Well, they always bellyaching and carry on about how them Arabs, well, I won't say Arabs, but how some of those Muslims and ISIS and all those use human shields and stuff. I want to show you the first example I could find in our history about human shields. The role of Indian non-combatants in Custer strategy, Cheyenne Confederates, taken at Fort Dodge, Kansas, en route to the stockade at Fort Hays. To the left stands a U.S. Army Chief of Scouts, John O. Austin. The southern Cheyenne encampment of the Washita River comprised a key component in Custer's field strategy. Indian non-combatants, women, children, and the elderly or disabled were targeted for capture to serve as hostages and human shields. Custer's battalions intended to ride into the camp and secure non-combatant hostages and force the warriors to surrender. Custer demonstrated a value of strategy that utilized capturing women and children to neutralize the southern Cheyenne superiority in numbers at the Battle of Washita. James Donovan, a writer, said it describes 53 women and children seized at the Washita as captives or prisoners, and they fit the definition of human shields in that they were used to ensure the escape of Custer's regiment as Cheyenne forces from nearby villages came in. They wouldn't attack them. What a wonderful group of guys after the Civil War. After doing their humanitarian campaign against the southern boys and gals and women and taking their land away from them, taking their plantations away from them. A lot of those folks, they didn't fight in those battles. They were just down there in the South. They just so happened they lived in Virginia, or just so happened they lived in South Carolina. Oh, just so happened they lived in Mississippi. They came all the way, marched through the scorched earth policy. I can't remember his name, came down through there and just burnt everything, killed everything in sight. They had attacked Atlanta day and night, bombing Atlanta. And now here today, this same group of guys with the same mentality want us not to fly the Dixie flag. And all it was a battle flag. I wonder if they still fly the flag that Custer carried into battle and that those other generals carried into battle. Here we have a symbol of the Dixie flag over two symbols of Indian nations that have the right to fly our flag as much as anybody. Those men in those times, those Indians fought honorably, as well as the soldiers of the Confederacy. I think we have just as much right to fly our flag, that we might be able to hold our honor and fly the American flag over all of them if they will only understand that it's not slavery and it's more about honorability. Now let me pose a question. With all the atrocities that the American soldiers did to the Indians after the Civil War, and all those horrible things that they done, in fact a lot of horrible things they done to the Southern people, and yet we fly Old Glory, and we all honor her, and we honor the men and women that gave their lives for it. We can not lay aside the Confederate flag, because those men died with honor, protecting their lands and their things. So of all the atrocities done, which would you think would balance out the worst? Slavery? Oh yes, and it was bad and very bad, and a lot of colored people were killed and murdered and stolen away from their homes and families. But also, those same guys that came and fought the Southern armies went and slaughtered Indians by the thousands and the hundreds, even taking atrocious trophies such as cutting off their scalps and their genitalia and marching them through the streets of a city in Colorado. How god-awful a thing was that? Well, let me tell you, so when you weigh these two matters, why can't we both honor both flags for the men that fought, some under orders and didn't have any choice, and to honor those men and women and that didn't even fight in the Confederate War at all, but had their plantations burned down, their houses burned, the whole city of Atlanta burnt to the ground, and God knows what other atrocities those Yankees done. We know what they did after the war, killing Indians, making them march hundreds and hundreds of miles. In fact, the Trail of Tears is a story that I don't know if the United States, on its behalf, worse than anything any ever Southern fella ever done, is the way they done those Indians, killing them. Kill men, women, babies, and all. So I think both sides is as guilty as the other side. So since we can't take down Old Glory, which we all love and respect, why do we have to now take down, under the auspice of such a cruel government that flies those flags in those days, have to take ours down as a result of something that happened 100+ years ago? So we're not going to take down Old Glory because of things that happened 100+ years ago. Let's honor them both, and let's honor both those men, all those men for both sides. Right or wrong, they still fought with honor. Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again.